Hello, and welcome to Skydive University's Basic Body Flight Theory. This video is part of our continuing series of educational videos. My name is Craig Buxton. I am co-founder of Skydive University, and I've worked in skydiving for over 10 years as an instructor, coach, and competitor. I also have an educational background that has allowed me to develop, illustrate, and tie together some important ideas for formation skydiving. The information presented in this video is for any skydiver interested in improving their skills, because you can be a better skydiver by improving your understanding. If you're also interested in some drill dives to practice some of the ideas presented in this video, may I recommend Skydive University's one-on-one and basic four-way instructional videos and programs. In this video, we're going to demonstrate formation skydiving techniques by utilizing state-of-the-art virtual reality technology. Welcome to Skydive University's virtual reality classroom. This technology is a powerful illustration tool that will provide us a very unique perspective. This will also be combined with air-to-air videography to help you define your performance objectives. It might surprise you to learn that these skydivers are simply using a combination of fundamental skills to achieve this level of performance. These fundamental skills are actually quite easy to understand and master. If you are a relative novice, this video will help you develop your understanding of the fundamental skills all good skydivers must possess. Before we can get started, however, we need to take some time to develop some common terminology and a good basic understanding of some of the underlying principles.
Something that formation skydiving requires is that we have the ability to move from place to place in order to build formations. What exactly do we mean when we say this? Imagine being suspended in the air at 13,000 feet and a portion of the air becomes visible, forming a ring. This ring provides a reference frame that is attached to the air. We could then have a series of such rings that extend all the way down to the ground. Now let's move to the center of the first ring. If we look up, we see a formation. It is falling straight down towards the ground at a constant speed. Now instead, let's imagine that we're falling along with someone in free fall. It would look something like this. Here, we can imagine some reference grid which is falling straight down at a constant speed. We will use this as our local reference frame throughout this video. Now we can define our place by describing our heading and center of mass location relative to this grid. For example, right now, we could say that he is sitting still in the center of the grid. Now that we know what we mean by our place in the air, we can define a move. A move is simply going from place to place. One of the goals of this video is to help you improve your ability to move from place to place in a straight line. Finally, from this example, we can begin to see how making small, controlled moves from place to place is a technique that we can use to go from one formation to the next.
Now that you understand the idea of making a move, you may be getting the uncomfortable feeling that there's an infinite number of moves that you need to master. But let's see what we can do to simplify the situation by beginning to understand the distinct characteristics of different types of movement.
Formation skydiving is accomplished in a three-dimensional space. Any movement in a three-dimensional space can be defined as a combination of fundamental movements. We will refer to these fundamental movements as our degrees of freedom. These arrows show the directions we need to be able to move for successful formation skydiving. The first type of movement we need to look at is called static, in which in fact there is no movement. In other words, we are just sitting still. Next, there is translational motion, where we move our center of mass from one place to a new place. This is accomplished by using 3 more fundamental types of movement: forward and backwards, up and down, and sideways movement, right and left. These translational skills will allow us to place our center anywhere we want. Rotational motion is where we change heading by rotating around our center. The only rotation we need to define for formation skydiving is controlling our heading. Finally, our fundamental moves can be combined to produce more exotic types of movement. This combination of fundamentals is called superpositional movement. Learning to perform these superpositional moves should be our ultimate goal for quality formation skydiving.
Now that we understand more about what types of moves we need to be able to make, let's look at the design of a body position that will work for formation skydiving. It is based on one of the most fundamental concepts in skydiving, the principle of stability.
In our sport, like any other sport, there is a basic stance from which the moves of the game are initiated. The body position shown here illustrates an idealized, strongly stable, neutral box body position. To evaluate your neutral body position, here are some practical things to look for. First, to sit still, your neutral position must be consistent in shape. You must trust that you can be relaxed, passive, and still remain stable. Next, you want to look to see that it is generally arched so that there is a low center of gravity. This increases stability. You also need to be able to arrange your shoulder and elbow joints so that a line connecting your hands is out in front of your head. This way, you can build formations without your head getting in the way. Your stance should be wide. We can measure this by imagining a line that connects the elbows and knees, which should enclose a large area. This large base of support enhances your stability. You also want to maintain a left-right symmetry. This will keep your center of mass in the center of your base of support. You can do this by disciplining your flying style to keep your spine straight, because a curve in the spine will cause a noticeable loss of stability. Also, as part of the left-right symmetry, we should always see an equal angle under each arm and an equal angle at the bend of the knee. It should generally be considered a problem if you see your arms or legs working independently. This body position is strongly stable, which is a serious advantage to the novice skydiver. As your experience allows, and as you develop a need for it, your body position may evolve into the sportier position shown here. As you gain experience by making more jumps, this transition position can easily be superimposed on top of the strongly stable body position presented in this video.
The concept of natural stability needs to be understood and respected. It provides a powerful tool that will help you with your skydiving. Or, if ignored, it can be a dramatic handicap that will retard your abilities in the air. The body position discipline that we just discussed is an important factor in successful formation skydiving. If you're having any problems in the air, look first to your body position fundamentals for a solution. The remainder of the information in this video will be presented in a series of modules. First, each module is illustrated by a computer-generated theory section to develop your understanding. Then, each skill is demonstrated in freefall to aid your personal visualization and ability to interpret your performance on video. And now, Module 1, Trimming Your Neutral Position.
We want to use a neutral box body position in order to sit still relative to our grid. What is it exactly that our body position does that allows us to fall straight down at a constant speed? Our neutral position produces a balanced deflection of air. We call this a balanced deflection of air because we are deflecting equal amounts of air in opposite directions. Due to the left-right symmetry of our body position, we naturally have a balanced deflection of air to the left and right. The balanced deflection out of the front and back, however, results from 1. Practicing the proper body position, 2. Having the proper distribution of drag on our jumpsuit, and 3. Refining our individual weight and balance in order to trim our neutral position. Imagine how the airflow is deflected as it meets our body. This deflection means that there are forces that act on us as we fall. These aerodynamic forces can be rewritten into their horizontal and vertical components. Because there is a balanced deflection of air, the horizontal forces will cancel each other out. Then, the remaining components can be rewritten as a single aerodynamic force, and, not coincidentally, this force is exactly equal and opposite to the force created by our body's weight. These forces then combine to cancel each other, and it's the balance of these forces that leaves us sitting still on the grid. Let's get in the air and see this skill demonstrated in free fall.
When I have to fall straight down, I feel I do it best when I relax into the body position, allowing my knees and elbows to blow back, and I can feel myself hanging on my center of gravity.
Your neutral position should be relaxed, passive, and calm.
A good, basic, stable body position is the most important building block of all skydiving skills. From all movement, we come back to the stable body position.
Frequently, our objective will be to sit still in the right place. We can use our neutral position and the principles of natural stability to accomplish this task. The ability to sit still at will is a skill that all good skydivers must possess. Now, let's begin to look at variations of our body position that we can use to create small, controlled movement in Module 2, forward and backwards movement.
The first translational moves we will explore are forward and backward while staying on level. Recall that a properly trimmed neutral position produces a balanced deflection of air to the front and back. But we can change our body position in a way that gives us body pitch. This produces an asymmetrical air deflection where we are pushing more air out of the back than the front. This air deflection produces the net aerodynamic force shown here. This force can be rewritten in its vertical and horizontal components. The vertical aerodynamic force can be made to balance our body's weight. This leaves a resulting force that pushes us toward the front. We always want to achieve movement by a coordinated use of our entire body. To move forward, we can increase the drag on our lower body by extending our legs. At the same time, we can redistribute and decrease the drag in the upper body by bringing our hands back and streamlining our chest. We then have a body pitch that pushes us forward. Similarly, if we change our body position in such a way that we cause more air to be deflected out the front, then this asymmetrical air deflection ultimately causes a force that pushes us towards the rear. We can get this body pitch if we increase the drag in our upper body by de-arching above the waist and simultaneously bend our knees to decrease the drag in our lower body. We then have a body pitch that results in a backwards push. Now, let's look at how a sequence of body positions can be combined to produce a move. Move is a cycle where we go from a neutral to a start phase and progress naturally through a coasting body position as we transition to a stop phase and finally return to neutral in order to sit still. Start, coast, stop, neutral. You will need to use this idea of start, coast, stop for every move you make. Here we can see forward and backward movement on level being performed in free fall.
When I move backwards, I have quite a bit of upper body de-arch in order to obtain the head-high body position required to make the move. I will also pull my lower legs out of the airstream just a bit. Forward movement requires a head-down body pitch. In order to do this, it helps to stick your legs out. But you also need to do things with your upper body to ensure that the body pitch is obtained.
Can you see the SCS principle being applied here in free fall?
When making forward movement, or any movement for that matter, it's critical to understand the importance of the stop. When I make a move, it's not just the acceleration phase that's important, but the stopping at the end of the move.
The ability to make small, controlled moves is the hallmark of a skilled skydiver. Remember to use the start, coast, stop principle to keep your moves small and crisp. Now, making these moves while staying on level requires that we superimpose our ability to control our fall rate. To do this, let's see more about what kind of body positions we can use in Module 3, up and down movement.
Let's now look at how to change fall rate in order to move straight up and down. We are going to use a balanced deflection of air to make these moves, but this time we will vary how much we are deflecting the air. Recall that when we have a balanced deflection of air, we can create an aerodynamic force that exactly balances our body's weight. However, by varying our body position, we can control the size of these aerodynamic forces. For example, if we arch our body more, we produce a smaller force because we only deflect the path of the air slightly. This smaller force can't quite balance our body's weight, which leaves a resulting force that accelerates us to a faster fall rate. While a slow fall position deflects the air more. This will result in a larger aerodynamic force. Because this force is greater than our body's weight, we are decelerated to a slower fall rate. Let's see how to vary the streamlining of our body to change the amount we are deflecting the air. Notice the coordinated use of the whole body, including flexing the chest and shoulders. From this point of view, we can see the articulation of the spine and coordinated use of the whole body to control fall rate. By being combined into a start, coast, stop cycle, this sequence of body positions can then be used to make distinct vertical moves. As you watch the video, can you see Jack change the shape of his spine to control fall rates?
When you're trying to slow your fall rate down, it's all happening in your torso region. It's very important to get every bit of arch out of your torso. My fast fall body position comes from my waist. I let everything blow back from that point and relax into it.
In formation skydiving, we will most often use our ability to control our fall rate by superimposing it on top of every move we make in order to always stay on level while we're building formations. Now that we understand more about staying on level, let's look at the next skill that we want to work to master in Module 4, Turns in Place.
When you are turning in place, your center of mass remains in place while you change heading. Let's look at how we can use our ability to deflect air and create the forces necessary for turning in place. Recall how our neutral position causes a balanced deflection of air to the left and right. This is part of the reason that our neutral position allows us to sit still on the grid. We can change our body position in a way that produces the asymmetrical lateral deflection of air shown here. This air deflection produces these aerodynamic forces, one force acting through our upper body and the other through our lower body. Again, these forces can be rewritten into their vertical and horizontal components. When done properly, the vertical components combine to balance our body's weight. This leaves the resulting forces shown here, and because these forces do not push through our center of mass, they cause us to turn. To produce the needed lateral force in our upper body, we can bank our upper body and flex our shoulders to catch and steer more air to the side. To produce the needed lateral forces in our lower body, we need to unlevel our knees and rudder our booties to steer air to the opposite side. To initiate a turn in place, you need to use your entire body. You must coordinate your upper and lower body to deflect equal amounts of air in opposite directions at the same time. The ability to do this is required to generate a turn in place. To turn these body positions into a move, they must be combined into a start, coast, stop cycle of body positions. Remember, that when initiating the stop portion of the move, you must continue to balance the use of your upper and lower body in order to remain in place while you are stopping. As you watch this dive, see if you can see the fall rate control presented in Module 3 being superimposed on some of Jack's moves. When skydiving, you generally want to maintain eye contact with the center point. Notice how, while turning, Jack looks first to the right and then head switches to look to the left in order to maintain close proximity and stay on level. Throughout, you need to remember the importance of good basic body position discipline. Notice how, because of Jack's body position discipline, he always stays straight through the spine and maintains an equal angle under each arm. Body position discipline is of paramount importance, even when facing away from the center. In addition, notice how the smaller transition position can be used to spin faster and how a larger body position can cause you to turn slower. As always, remember to have fun, be safe, and keep your eyes open for other canopies on the way back to the DZ.
Turn in place is the most common move in formation skydiving, so the time and trouble to master it may well be worth it. Now that we understand more about how a lateral deflection of air can cause us to turn, let's see how some of these same skills can be used in Module 5 to produce a sideways movement.
The final fundamental skill we are going to look at is sideways movement. You will want to learn to do these moves while staying on level and maintaining heading. To move sideways, you must change your body position from one that produces a balanced deflection of air to the left and right to a body position that produces an asymmetrical deflection of air. This asymmetric deflection of air can be made to produce the aerodynamic force shown here. Rewriting this force into component form, the vertical force once again acts to cancel our body's weight, leaving a resulting force that pushes us sideways. To produce this sideways force, we can use the same techniques that we developed to turn in place. We will push the air to the side using our upper body and also push air in the same direction with our lower body. In order to move sideways without turning, we must learn to coordinate our upper and lower body to push the same amount of air to the same side at the same time. As with all moves, these body positions need to be combined into a start, coast, stop sequence in order to make small, controlled moves.
To make a good sideways move, stay straight through the spine and allow body pitch to happen to push air to the side.
In this video, can you see the neutral position being used to sit still? Can you see the body pitch that is part of the start, coast, stop cycle of making a move?
Sideways movement was the last of our fundamental moves defined by our degrees of freedom. Now that we've seen each of these fundamental movements, let's look more closely at how these fundamentals can be combined to produce more generalized types of moves in Module 6, superpositional movement.
After we have developed the ability to move forward and backward on level and straight up and straight down, we generally should be able to automatically superimpose these skills in order to have complete freedom of movement in the vertical plane shown here. Once we've developed our ability to move forward, backward, and sideways on level, we then have the ability to move from any place to any other place on the formation skydiving playing field. Notice the use of the start, coast, stop cycle of body positions and the straight line movements from place to place. In addition, we can superimpose a turn around our center to make even more exotic moves on level while still moving in a straight line from place to place. Remember that this is the skill needed in order to build formations. The ability to do superpositional moves is automatic if you can demonstrate all of the pure fundamental moves we've discussed. This is because this type of superpositional move is actually a combination of forward, backward, up, down, turning, and sideways movement skills.
When doing complex movement, think only of the place you want to move to. Imagine how the move will feel and execute.
As you watch this video, can you begin to see the body pitch necessary to make the starts and stops for the diagonal move shown here?
Most movement in skydiving is very complex. It's made up of many different moves superimposed one on top of the other. But in order to learn to make these movements well, it's important to study the fundamental movements that make up the complex movements. It's a good idea to train these over and over until the repetition has made it completely automatic in your mind. At that point, start superimposing the moves one on top of the other and getting the complex movements you need.
video should leave us with an improved understanding of how to move from any place to any other place. And remember, we started this video with the idea that moving from place to place was how we could move from one formation to another formation. So let's see what this idea looks like when applied in a four-way environment.
First thing in your mind needs to be what your move is. And when you're skydiving on a team and you can trust your teammates to make their move and you make yours, that's when the skydive starts to work. Until that happens, until everybody's thinking about what their move is initially, everything's perpetually right.
By now, you should understand more about the nature and importance of the fundamentals of formation skydiving. And because these ideas are fundamental, they apply at any level. So learn them well, and you'll be more prepared to face whatever challenges you in the air. So, for Skydive University, blue skies, have fun, and please be safe.